Hello, Thrill Maxers, and welcome to another exciting episode of Talk Around the Park. I am super excited to talk about the park we're going to highlight tonight because we're getting outside of the U.S., guys. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Blackpool Pleasure Beach. That's right. We're going to go over to the UK tonight. And before we do that, I want everyone to welcome our special guest. We have Ryan from Theme Park Loopy. Guys, make sure to subscribe and follow Ryan on all the different social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. All you got to do is search right here at Theme Park Loopy and you'll find them. Ryan, how you doing tonight?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. And just so everybody knows, we are doing this live, and right now it's about 1 p.m. here in the U.S., and it's about, 7 p.m. over in the UK?
It's 6:53 to be precise. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
It's still light. It's still light outside though, and it's been really warm here. Well, it's warm for us because it's about 24 degrees. So that's pretty well. 24 Celsius. I think you do Fahrenheit, don't you?
We do Fahrenheit. So it's about 40 degrees Fahrenheit over here. So it's still a little chilly over in the US.
Yeah.
But we're so happy because, a lot of our fans and stuff have probably never been across the pond, as they say. And they've probably never been to this park, but everyone's heard of it, especially with your newest edition icon. But before we get into it, why don't you tell everybody kind of how you're connected to the park? How do you know this park? Why don't you just fill everybody in on that?
Yeah, so I live in the north of England, so that's where Blackpool Pleasure Beach is. It's in the northwest on the coast. So it's always been one of our local parks to go to, basically. So when we, as a family, would go to the coast, go on holiday for the weekend, Blackpool would be somewhere that we go to. And the Pleasure Beach back then was more like a kind of normal amusement park. So you'd kind of just go in and, get some tickets and just go on some rides. And then as the years have gone on, and we've, I've left home, me and my wife now, we just started going to Blackpool. We've had season tickets at Blackpool, and we just love going because it's just such a great resort now. It can have a bit of a bad reputation, does Blackpool, but it's just for a weekend. It's just a great place to go to. So we just love going to it. And the Pleasure Beach, it's changed so much over the last 10 years. It's just amazing. So for us, it's just deep rooted into history. Going as a child and with my wife, it's somewhere that we love to go. And probably, I'd say it's our favorite park to go to, probably, really, because I think it's got it all. And we just love going. So there you go.
That's awesome. Well, let's just jump right into this episode, and let's just start talking about it. Our first segment, as always, is what audience is the park geared towards? So what would you say, because I've never been to Blackpool before, what would you say, what kind of audience do you think they're trying to attract?
So to put it into context, Blackpool is a family resort. The whole of Blackpool, it's like a kind of mini Las Vegas in a way. Not as shiny or as big, obviously, but it's basically a family resort. So it's got beach, it's got a big beach. It's got loads of hotels. It's got arcades, lots of different attractions in the tower. So really, the Pleasure Beach has always been aimed towards family. It's always been a family park because that's what Blackpool's aimed at. Recently, probably since 1994, it's probably attracted more thrill seekers. Before that, it would have been mainly, younger kids and things like that and family members. But definitely, thrill seekers now go to Blackpool Pleasure Beach, which is great. But you do see a lot of families as well. So that's kind of the market that it's going for.
Okay, awesome. And I agree. Just based on the ride lineup, what I can see, and any kind of park tours that I've seen, it always shows families walking around. And as we get into it, there's a lot of mixed attractions. Yes, there's stuff for the thrill seekers, but they also cater to people that are more of an intermediate rider, someone who isn't a high thrill seeker. And so we'll get into that in our next segment, which is the park's ride lineup. Man, you guys got a lot to offer over there. A lot. I broke this up into 3 different sections. I broke it up into the coasters, the flat rides, the water rides, and Usually when I get to water ride sections in a lot of parks, there's nothing to talk about. There's a lot of good stuff to talk about at
There's
Blackpool.
definitely some things to talk about. I mean, also the fact that the park is it's less than 50 acres big. So the fact that it has all those rides, that's one of the attractions, because you can't turn a corner without seeing about 5 rides in your eye line.
Yeah.
So that's one of the good things.
So let's start this off with the coasters.
Yeah.
Let's run through some of the coasters. Man, so just looking over the list right now, because I do take notes for these shows, guys.
Oh,
But just
that's
looking,
very organized.
yeah, well, yeah, I have to be. But with these coasters, just looking over it, you've got 4 wooden coasters. It's a lot for a park. You've got 3 classic arrows. I mean, your arrow collection is really cool, I think. And then you also have a Vekoma, an SLC. You also have a bobsled coaster,
Yeah.
and then the newest out of the box, just completely new manufacturer for you guys is Icon, and that's that Mach launch coaster, multi-launch coaster. It looks awesome. I can't wait to get in on that. So why don't we run through some of these rides? What are your favorites? What are, give us the layout here.
All right, so so the Pepsi Max big one, that's the hypercoaster, that's the Aero hypercoaster. That's 200 and I think it's 235 feet tall, 205 feet, something like that above sea level. So it's a really tall hypercoaster, but what's kind of interesting about it is that you kind of go up this long drawn out lift hill, and then you immediately kind of turn into almost like a screw, and it kind of screws down towards the ground. And it had to be reprofiled after it was open for the first couple of years, because it was just too kind of intense the way that it kind of turned. But yeah, that's really exciting. And when you kind of hit the bottom, you just kind of get this intense hit of G-force, and you just kind of get pulled down into your seat with this G-force. And then the rest of the ride is it's just like basically a non-stop kind of speed experience. It's weird because if you kind of look at it from the ground, it doesn't look like it's going very quickly. And if it gets caught in the wind, sometimes it does kind of struggle around a little bit. But it's just kind of non-stop, and it kind of heads towards, it's got this massive turnaround that goes over the park, over the entrance of the park.
Yeah.
And you kind of like, if you sit on the right side, so on the left, you're just kind of hanging down and looking inside the park, and it's just amazing. And then it's just kind of non-stop on the way back. And then you have this head chopper as you kind of go under the support structure, and you think, oh my god, this structure is going to hit my head. And then you go on to that, and then you kind of the ends with going on to a brake run, and then just before the end you then go into a helix. So you go into a helix which goes around the area where one of the miniature train and the mazes that passes by, and then you just kind of go through this tunnel, and then you kind of stop on this brake run just like like that, and it's just like, all right, okay,
so it's over, it's done.
Yeah, it's such a mad experience. I mean, it has a bit of a reputation. Some people call it a monorail, because if you look at the profile of the ride, it's not an airtime machine, but what it does have is speed. It has G forces, and it's just an all round exciting ride. But the best part of it is that it's so high, and obviously you're on the coast. And the fact that, I don't know if people know, but in Blackpool, they have the illuminations on. So we have like a strip around the front, and we have like lights that light up during the year. So from September. So if you go at the end of the season and you go up on a night time, you can just see these lights just go out for miles, and you just get these views. So, it's part of the experience as well, that you get these amazing views. So the big one for me, it's a coaster which some people don't like in the UK, but it's pretty smooth. Some people say it's rough, but I don't think it is. It doesn't have the airtime thrills, but it's an exciting ride, and I really enjoy it. So yeah, big one. That's the big one.
Yeah, and for our viewers, that maybe don't know about the big one, if you're in the US and you've been to Cedar Point, think of Magnum. It uses the same sorts of trains. That's an Aero Hyper 2. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, and I want you to comment below in the comments if I am mistaken, but I'm pretty sure big one was built right after Magnum, and it took the height record from Magnum
Yeah.
to be the tallest coaster in the world.
Yeah, when the big one was built, it was the tallest and fastest roller coaster in the world.
Yep.
So that kind of gives you an idea of the kind of speed. I mean, obviously, when rides like King the Car came about, that took the speed record. But for 1994, that kind of height, that kind of speed, it was something that kind of blew everyone away in the UK because I don't know if people might not know about UK parks, but we have a lot of restrictions in terms of what you can actually build because the parks are often always near residential areas. You know, we don't have big expanses of area that you can build on because either it's a national park or it's farmland or people live there. So often you can't actually build very tall, rides. However, Blackpool has no limitation. So if Blackpool ever wants to do anything in the future, they can always go taller. They can always go taller and go faster. Whereas places like Alton Towers can't do that. So that's the kind of advantage that they have. So yeah, it was. I remember when it came out, and I don't know if you guys have Simply Red over there, but Simply Red did a song called Fairground. And they filmed part of the video on the Pepsi Max big one, and that was kind of its theme tune when it first came out.
Oh, cool.
I love the thought of coming home to you. So that one.
Cool. I didn't know that. That's really cool.
Yeah. So if you watch the video, so yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, wooden coasters wise, yeah, it's got the biggest collection of wooden coasters in the UK. Probably I don't know if it is in Europe, but I mean, I'm just trying to think of parks that have that many classic wooden coasters. I mean, classic coasters,
and they're all classic. They're not modern wooden. I mean, and when we get into like the Big Dipper, it doesn't get any more classic than the Big Dipper. No. That is a old school coaster, and that's really neat. But there's something for everyone in the wooden coaster lineup. You've got your old wooden coaster with the Big Dipper. You've got your kid wooden coaster with the Blue Flyer. You've got your family style with Nickelodeon Streak, which is interesting because if you don't know, guys, if you ever watch park tours or anything, the Nickelodeon one stands out because it's the bright orange wooden coaster. They painted it, and then the cars are lime green, and I've never seen a wooden coaster with such a crazy paint color.
It suffers a bit with the sea air. It's not looking as bright these days.
Okay.
But yeah, that's probably my favorite wooden coaster is Nickelodeon Streak there, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I think so because it's surprisingly smooth actually for such an old ride. The Big Dipper's good, but it's very raucous these days, and it does struggle a bit on the turnaround these days. But yeah, I think Nickelodeon Streak. I think for a lot of people who are Pleasure Beach fans, I'd say probably Nickelodeon Streak. They'd say is probably their favorite wooden roller coaster, but a lot of people like the Grand National, which I'm sure that you'll go on to because that's probably a very unique wooden roller coaster.
Yes, and I'm going to let you talk more about the Grand National just because you know it more than me. But yes, in terms of uniqueness, it's awesome. My question before we talk about that though is, do the wooden coasters? Do any of them feature really good airtime? Because some of the POVs make it look like there might be some decent pops.
Ejector airtime, yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. The Big Dipper, first couple of dips, you definitely get ejector airtime. But the Grand National is the ejector airtime machine, I'd say.
Yes. Why don't you tell everybody what makes this coaster so unique? What makes this just an awesome, I would say, destination coaster? You really do need to get there to ride this.
Yeah, so the Grand National is a wooden racing coaster, and it's actually I'm not sure if there's any more in the world, but it's actually on a Mobius loop. So you go out of one station and then you'll come back into the other. So that's what makes it the racing coaster. So you basically you go up a lift hill as normal, and then you kind of you square up to the other carriage, and you kind of wave at each other and say, "Oh, we're gonna beat you today. Definitely gonna beat you." And then you just kind of head down these wooden dips, and then as you start to go in the turnaround, then you start to kind of race more against each other. And then the idea is at the end that one of the carriages would then kind of beat you. So it's kind of loosely based. I think people get this a bit confused with. They get the Grand National confused with the other coaster that's there, which is quite unique, where you actually sit on a horse. But the Grand National is the one where it's a wooden coaster and you've got two carriages and you both race against each other. And it's just kind of like a wild ride, really. I mean, for me, the first couple of drops, you get some really good ejector air time. Even in the corners, you feel like you're going to get ejected, which, for some people, it's not the best sensation, but it's just a real classic. And it's just, again, it's got such speed to it as well. And it's just such an enjoyable ride. And then the added bonus that you're kind of racing against each other. The only thing you've got to be careful is not to sit on the wheels, because if you sit on the wheels, then you're going to be in for a bit of a rough time.
That seems to be the trick with most old school wooden coasters. And we do have, if anybody is confused about what we're talking about, if you've been to Kennywood here in Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania, they have a coaster called the Racer. And that coaster is a Mobius loop coaster like he's talking about. And it does a lot of it's very similar in concept. Obviously layout's different. But you can do that here in the US. The other one, it's not wooden, but we do have one more pretty well-known Mobius loop coaster, and that's the RMC out in Magic Mountain called Twisted Colossus. And so that's an RMC, but still, if you're wondering what he's talking about what is a Mobius loop, those two are examples of Mobius loop coasters here in the US. With that said, we have a couple of other coasters. You mentioned a coaster where you ride on horses. And for those of you who don't know, they have one of the last standing, one of the original aerodynamic steeplechases.
Yeah.
And oh man, please tell us, how does it feel riding? Your center of gravity is different. Tell us about this ride, because most of us have never ridden an old school aero steeplechase, unless you in the US went to Knott's Berry Farm back in the day. So, but tell us, for those of us who have never experienced it like me, how does this feel?
Yeah, it's it's definitely an interesting experience. But yeah, I mean, the way that it kind of starts out is that you'll go up some steps and you'll kind of start over the top of the station. And then there's 3 different steps that you can go through, because there's 3 different tracks. So it says, choose your horse. So you kind of you choose your horse, and then you just kind of walk down these steps and go into the station. Then they have, you can fit 2 people onto these horses. However, if you go early enough, what they'll let you do is if you go down separately, they'll let you go down and kind of race each other. So you don't need to have a second person on there. And so you kind of sit on it, and they've actually added some extra restraints to it now. So it's a little bit different, but previously all it was is just a little bit of plastic behind your back, and then just a seatbelt, and then you just kind of held onto this kind of metal bar. And then you just kind of feel like you go like this and like that. And then after going up the lift hill, then you kind of go into these really sharp turns. And so you just go down, and then you just suddenly go like this, and you suddenly go like that. And you're just going through these sharp turns. You think, oh my God, I'm going to come off this. So it probably feels a lot like riding a real horse, but then it kind of goes into these these dips as well, which kind of, we have like little hedges, so it's like as if you were going doing a steeplechase. And so going over these bumps, and you just kind of feel these kind of pops every time you go over these bumps. And it's just it's an all-around weird experience. I mean, it's definitely not a thrilling experience, and I'd say that the forces are not you can't describe them as enjoyable. However, it's such a unique ride, and also because you're racing against the person next to you, that adds a bit of fun to it as well. Because you know, especially if you go on the left hand side and then you kind of go into the sharper turns, that can be like a really a really weird experience.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about, because there's sections where all three of them turn at the same time. Of course,
yeah.
As you go in, the diameters would get smaller.
Yeah, so there's some way you go, oh, you choose one and then you forget the reason why you don't normally choose that one. And it's because it has the sharpest turns.
Right.
So, but we love it. I mean, it's a ride that you wouldn't, I don't think, well, if you weren't someone who went to the Pleasure Beach all the time, it's a must ride because it's so unique. But if you're someone like us who goes to the Pleasure Beach all the time, it's one of those rides that you go on early, you know, and then once is enough, you know. But it is, you know, it's a must. It's definitely a must recommend if you've never been to Pleasure Beach before. It must be one of the most unique experiences that you're ever going to go on, probably.
It's on my bucket list, just because of the uniqueness. I can't wait to get over there one day and ride that.
Yeah.
Moving on from the steeplechase, there is a couple of, since we're on aerodynamics, we'll talk about the other aerodynamics there. You have Revolution. For those of you in the States that have been to Frontier City in Oklahoma City, what this is it's an Aero shuttle loop. So if you've ever ridden Diamondback at Frontier City, you know what this is. Basically, it launches you out, you drop, go through a loop, come up, stop, and then it goes backwards throughout that same layout. Now, here in the States, real quick question, because I want to see how these compare. When I went on Diamondback at Frontier City, I was amazed. And when you go forward and you drop and you go through the loop, when you come up into that brake run, you get this huge pop of airtime. Okay. Yeah. Is it the same there? Do you still get that really big pop?
Yeah, it's a really snappy launch. I always forget about how snappy the launch is, and especially if you sit at the back, and it kind of feels like it's going on forever, and you're waiting for that inevitable drop, and then suddenly you get this drop, and you go, it goes straight down, and yeah, it's a hell of an experience. I mean, I can't remember when it opened in the UK. I think it like 1973 or something like that. And it still rides really well, you know. But the biggest problem with these types of rides is the fact that you have to walk up all these stairs. You know, it must be, you know, I can't think of many coasters where you have to walk up so many stairs just to get on the ride. So I don't know what the one like is in the States. I don't know if you have like a lift or something, but
yeah,
you know, it's definitely a bit of exercise.
I thought the same thing. I thought, why can't they put a big elevator here that just accommodates the number of riders for the train, and you just send up train full, send them up, and then people come up, you send them, and you could just have two elevators, one going up, one going down all day, and it would be. And by the way, if you're listening, theme parks, do the same thing for water parks for the water slides. Okay?
Yeah.
Come on, if we're paying all this money to go to water parks, I shouldn't have to work that hard. But
it's the same thing. It's the same as water parks and it having to go up all those stairs. But it's a bit of exercise, you know. So at least you get a bit. Then again, you're walking around a theme park all day. You probably don't really need the exercise, do you? So
I'm American. What is this foreign word exercise you speak of?
Have you heard jogging, also known as yogging?
Yeah, jogging. We do have a couple more coasters in the park. We have, and we don't have to spend any time talking about this one. We've got a Vekoma SLC. If we have a dime a dozen of these in the U.S., they're known as hang and bangs because you're really going to bang your head on them. It's called Infusion. Over there, it's a big blue coaster. If you guys are looking at the POV or the park tours and stuff, it's the big blue coaster in the park.
It's over water as well.
Yeah, which is super, super cool. They do have a pretty standard bobsled coaster called Avalanche. But the last coaster on my list, and the one that everybody knows now, okay, especially in the US, is your newest coaster. New for last year. It's a Mach Multilaunch coaster.
I don't know if you can see it. Oh, no, wrong side.
Icon. Yeah, man. And for those of you in the States, if you're wondering what a Mach Multilaunch coaster is, go look up the POV from Copperhead Strike. It has a lot of things that are similar and some things that are different. Why don't you talk about it? This Mach Multilaunch coaster.
Yeah, I guess the first thing to say is it doesn't have overhead restraints. You have lap bars, but the newest style. I guess you'll have them in the States as well, but in Europe, this has been this style now for these kind of restraints, which kind of sit over your kind of midriff, and they're kind of, they're quite tight and they kind of go around. So it's not like a T-bar or something like that. It kind of goes around, so you're quite secure. So it starts off the station. You start off in the station, and you get onto it. One of the funny thing that we like quite about in the station is it has this quite interesting bag system. You put your bag in, and then when the train exits, the shutter goes around, and then the other bags come out. So for us in the UK, that was something that we hadn't ever seen before.
Oh, cool!
We see them in Germany, but we haven't seen that. So we're quite excited by that. So people can't nab your bag because it knows which bags are for which train.
So
that's
cool.
Good. So you kind of basically come out of the station and you get a weird bit of on-ride audio. I'd really like for it to have more on-ride audio, but it kind of gives this on-ride audio where it's like kind of counting down. And then you just kind of, you launch forward into a bit of a tunnel, and usually there's smoke as well. So you're kind of launching into the unknown almost. And then you kind of go straight up a hill, and then you just crest at the hill, and then that takes you into the first drop, and then it just kind of goes on to the rest of the run. And then after you do a couple of sort of twists and turns, and then it does kind of like a bit of a bigger helix, a larger helix that goes around. And then we have the second launch. So basically it pulls you back. I think, I'm just trying to think, you go into the Heartline roll, I think, before you go into the second launch. I can't remember, but you go into a Heartline roll. That's one of the elements, and then when you go into the second launch, you kind of go down into a head chopper, into more smoke, and then you kind of go into the launch, because the launches are parallel to each other. So I think it's for efficiency, because you can have the power plant in the same place, can't you?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it takes you into the second launch, then onto an Immelman. And then kind of into another sort of tighter helix. And that's probably, the tighter helix is weirdly probably my favorite part of the ride, because I can't explain it, but the kind of force that you experience, it's actually really kind of thrilling kind of force. I would never have thought that a helix would be my favorite element of a ride, but you just feel this force, so you can tell that it's just been precision engineered, thinking about the riders and the kind of forces that you're going to feel. And then obviously it just kind of comes back round into the station. So yeah, it's a really exciting ride. The only thing to say is, even though it is a launch, it's not a particularly snappy launch. It's more about the elements around the ride. So it's not really about the launch. Probably the second launch is more thrilling, because you're dropping down onto it and then getting launched again into the Immelman, whereas the first is obviously from a standing start. So the way I kind of see it is that the first launch is more about the fact that there isn't a lift hill. So it's just a way of starting the ride. But they've tried to make it as exciting as possible by going into the smoke, going into the tunnel, and then kind of going straight into, that crest. So yeah, it's a really exciting ride. It's kind of hard to explain, but if no one's been on a Heartline roll with lap bars before, that is an experience.
Yeah,
that's one hell of an experience
for sure. One of the things I'll say is that that's kind of characteristic of Mach, or Mach, however you guys pronounce it. But with Mach rides, I keep hearing that the launches are not intense, that they are gradual, kind of launches. You're not going to get something, like Max Force here in the US. You're not going to get something like Top Thrill Dragster. It's not going to feel like that, guys, at all. However, one of the cool things about Mach coasters is, especially this one, what I love about this one is the way that they twist their tracks and weave it in and out of each other. And one of the cool things is that it goes right through the structure of the big one.
Yeah, it
And
goes
every
straight
time
through.
I
Yeah.
see that in the POV, I'm like, oh, that is so cool. That was genius what they did with
Yeah,
that
yeah.
maneuver. Um,
You
so
can't. You kind of have to in Blackpool because there's just not enough room. But yeah, you're weaving in and out of. I mean, you have. I put up a video not so long ago where you're on the train that goes through the middle of the park, and you have the Big Dipper on one side, and then you have Icon on the other side, and then you have the Pepsi Max over on the other side, and then you go around to Infusion, and it's just like a coaster jungle. There's no other way of explaining it. But yeah, the interaction. Probably, I think if you put this ride on a car park, I don't think it'd be as thrilling as what it is because you get that interaction. I think that kind of adds to it because your senses are all over the place because you're thinking, oh my god, there's that over there and there's that over there and now there's that over there, and then it kind of just guides you through these elements, and it's non-stop. It's I don't know how to explain it, but I think the thing is with some launch coasters is that they can be one-trick ponies because it's all about the launch, and then the rest of the track is about it petering out. So if you look at probably Rita at Alton Towers, it's really about the launch and it's got a bit of a track, but that's it's just part of petering it out. Whereas the launch is about getting you onto the ride and getting you to the right speed to then have an enjoyable journey around.
yeah,
So they've really thought about the layout and the kind of forces that you're going to experience. So that's what makes it such a good ride. If it was just about the launches and it just had standard elements, it'd just be like any other ride. But because of the way it is and the way it's been engineered with riders in mind. They've really thought about what's the best experience that we can give to riders in this kind of limited space that we have. So it's kind of like a genius construction, really, what they've done. It's unbelievable.
that's kind of that theme of really thinking of the rider. That's very characteristic of Blackpool Pleasure Beach in general, and that's going to translate into some of our other rides we're going to talk about. We'll just briefly mention the flat rides because a lot of the flat rides you can find at most theme parks in the U.S. Variations of them. They have a space yacht from SNS. They have some old school rides like Flying Machines, Dabby Racer. You have a taxi ride that's kind of like a scrambler kind of ride where it spins you and the whole thing spins. So in terms of flat rides, they're there. You definitely have a good number of flat rides. Would you say any flat ride to you stands out from the pack as being better than the others?
Um, I'd say purely for its historical significance, the flying machines, because I mean it's been there for over 100 years, So to be able to go onto a ride that's been there for over 100 years, and if you look at the pictures when it was originally built, the reason why it's called Pleasure Beach is because it was originally just literally built onto a beach. It was just some rides on a beach.
Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of reclaimed the land later on. So the flying machines was just literally, on a beach, and it's just been there. And actually, you can go in. There's a shop underneath, and you can go and you can see, or at least you used to be able to see the workings as well of the flying machines.
Oh, cool.
So for people who are into rides, it's quite unique to be able to go in and see this ride system that's been there. I've just changed the power plant has changed because I think it used to be run on steam, but now I think it's probably diesel or something like that,
That's
or
cool.
just electric. So that's changed over time, but yeah, so that's quite unique. Is the flying machines. The rest of the flat rides. The only thing to mention, yeah, it's just that obviously they have the rides in Nickelodeon Land. They're all quite standard rides. There's a disco ride, which is all right. We always quite like going on the disco, but apart from that, nothing really of note other than there's a Sky Force ride, which is probably, I don't know if you have those in the States or not, where you actually control it and you can sort of spin as many times.
They're rare in the States, but yes, we have one or two examples. The one that comes to mind is at Nickelodeon Universe, and it's themed to Ninja Turtles. And actually, your car looks like the back shell of a Ninja Turtle of a turtle. And so, and you're moving around. It just looks really neat. They are rare. I'm hoping more parks get them.
Well, I think there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk about, because there's limited space in Blackpool. I think if there was a ride that people would be happy to get rid of, it'd probably be that one. I think that's your dog.
That's my dog. Just so you guys know, we do record these live. We are at home doing social distancing during this situation we got going on. So that's my dog, Buster. He usually makes a sound appearance some point in these episodes. For him to go an hour or so without making any noise is really hard for him. But
yeah, I think so. If any ride was going to go and people wouldn't, people would be okay with going, it'd probably be that one. So it's unique, but I think the kind of forces that you get on it are not particularly great. So a lot of people really enjoy that ride, and now it doesn't really get the queues anymore. So if they had to give that space up, I don't think a lot of people would cry about it, to be honest. So it's a shame. Okay. But there we go.
But moving on to our next section, and there's one that most definitely people know about. It's iconic, and that's we're gonna move to the water rides. I'll mention two of the water rides that are lesser known.
You must be talking about the Rugrats Lost River.
The Lost River ride. Oh my gosh, it's world renowned. Everybody knows the Rugrats Lost River ride. For those of you who don't know, that's a smaller log flume ride. They also have something called the River Caves, which is another water attraction. And then there's the one everybody knows. The one I have never in my life said I have to go to a theme park to ride this water ride. Yeah. But there is a water ride there that is called Valhalla.
Yeah.
And I want you tell us about Valhalla. It's a log flume, right?
Yeah, well, it's not quite a log flume because you're in a boat. So you're in like an old like a Viking boat basically. Mm-hmm. So you see, okay. I think it's rows of 3 or 4, and there's about 4 rows of that. So it's basically in the dark. A lot of people call it the warehouse of water because apart from the front, it is just a big warehouse, and because it's Blackpool, you can see the warehouse. But basically, it's in the dark, and you're going into Valhalla. So you go into various different sections. So you have like a projection when you go at the lift hill. It says Valhalla, blah blah. It's all that. It kind of gets you, and then you have these kind of animatronic hellhounds as well to the side. And then you kind of go through these various rooms. So you go through a cold room, which is meant to feel like it's freezing. And then you have a hot room where it's like fire. And it just takes you all these different scenes. And then the first drop is like a backwards drop. So you go into like a drop and then onto a turntable. And then you have 2 other drops. So you have one smaller drop and then you have the big drop at the end. And the best bit is probably, I enjoy the big drop at the end because you kind of drop and then you have fire everywhere. And then you have a tunnel of water all over the place. And then you just have explosions because the last bit of the ride is meant to be that you've entered Valhalla and there's all these Viking boats that are on fire. It's just flame everywhere. It's just this kind of really dramatic ride. It's just unbelievable, really. The only problem with it is that because it's got so much pieces, so many things going on that it can break, and so there's kind of like a running joke of, what's going to be working on Valhalla today? Is the water vortex going to be on? Is the fire going to be on? Is the cold room going to be cold? Is the hot room going to be hot? So it's kind of like a running joke. So that's why it's it's going to be reimagined this year. But yeah, it's an unbelievable ride. But the track was built by Intamin. Mm-hmm. But the Thompson family brought in like basically Hollywood standard special effects people at the time, because this is the 90s, and this is before projection mapping and things like that. They went all out and said, you know what, who can make this like, some sort of Viking mad movie set, and that's what they did. And there's a documentary on YouTube, and the kind of engineering that went into it, it's unbelievable. The kind of things that they thought about, because like the cold room, originally, and still does sometimes, it actually snows in there. So
Oh, wow.
the snow has to kind of then be melted and then kind of go back into the system, because obviously they don't want just water everywhere where there's all these electrics and special effects. So they have this real snow in this room. So they've just kind of thought about everything. I think it was the code name. I think it was Project 2000, that one. But it's unbelievable, really, the kind of money that they spent on it, for Blackpool. It was a hell of an investment. I think they were paying for it for a long time, and they had to rebuild the station a good few years ago, because they decided to have this waterfall on the outside. So it's just tons and tons of water, and it was all just dropping on the station, and they brought in woodworkers from Norway to actually carve this station.
Wow.
So it's all so it's not just fiberglass or something. This is all real wood that's been carved by craftsmen. And then they decided it was a good idea to just dump tons and tons of water on it, and then obviously it started to rot. So a good few years ago, they had to basically completely redo the station, redo the waterfall, so it wasn't dumping as much water on the station. But you won't go on any water ride that gets you more wet than Valhalla. If you don't come off with a partially sunken boat, then you've not had a good ride. And that's just Valhalla. So I'm trying to think of anything that you might have in the US that would be similar to Valhalla, but I'm struggling. So
I mean, you know what? In terms of, there's nothing. I can't think of anything that's themed like that, other than Splash Mountain at Disney is heavily themed. Other than that, I guess maybe Dudley Do Right's Ripsaw Falls, or whatever it's called, over at Universal Islands of Adventure. Yeah, that is. But furthermore, there's not very many parks that one of their headlining attractions is a flume ride. It just doesn't happen. And so, again, personally, the reason I want to get out there is because you're going to have those old school rides you're going to be able to ride, but then you're going to get this amazing water ride. Everyone that I've talked to that's been on it, which is far and few in between, has just raved about it. So
it's one hell of a ride.
Yeah. So with that said, what do you think the best rides are in the park? Obviously, Valhalla is the best water ride in the park. But when we get into the coasters and flats or whatever, especially the coasters, what do you think the best rides are?
Well, I think technically speaking, I think it'd be hard to say that Icon isn't the best ride there.
Okay.
However, for experience, I still think the big one is the best ride there, just for the all-round experience and the fact that you're going so high and you're getting that speed experience. And also, the build-up to the big one is great, because I don't know if you've seen the station, but it was designed by one of the family members who own the park. And it's got a window at the end of the station where the control booth is. And when you stood in the kind of cattle pen area waiting to go on the ride, all you can see through the window is the drop. And so you see the ride just drop. So people who are waiting in the queue, you just see it just plunge down this drop. I mean, this is, it's hundreds of meters away, but the way they've framed the window is that you just see this drop. So the kind of anticipation that you get, especially the first time riding, you're just watching this drop, 200 foot in the air, is unbelievable. And it's a hell of an experience in the rain, because it's like having tiny needles injected into your face. It's an unbelievable ride. So I think that's probably, for me, that's the number one ride. Icon's probably my second favorite ride there.
Nice.
But technically, Icon is probably the best ride. But for me, big one, just because of the way it is, just because it's so unique.
I'll be honest. The most anticipated element of the big one is the first drop. I mean, the way you just snap to the side. And I can't wait to ride it in the back row. So I really get that yank, I really get that pull. That's going to be awesome.
It's incredibly steep as well. Because even though it was the tallest, fastest, but it's also the steepest roller coaster when it was first built as well. So it's a hell of a profile, but it's the way that
is it still, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is it still the tallest in England, in the UK?
Yeah, in the UK, it's still the tallest. I mean, you wouldn't be able to beat it, really. because even Fort Park, I don't think they can go over 200 foot. So anything over 200 foot is going to be the tallest in the UK.
But
so
isn't there, how big is Stealth?
it's not as tall as the big one. I can't remember how tall it is exactly, but it's not as tall as the big one.
Okay, comment down below, guys. How big is Stealth? I'd love to know the height of Stealth. But that's another coaster at another park that we're going to do one day. So now that we've talked about the rides in the park and we've gotten a good feel for the lay of the land out there, the next section is, what additions do you think the park needs? What would you say?
So I'd say right. Okay. Oh, just to confirm, Stealth is 205 foot tall. So I think the big one is technically 235 foot above sea level, but I think it's 205 foot tall. I think so. That could be argued, but there we go with Stealth. But as far as I'm aware, the Pleasure Beach always say that it's still the tallest in the UK. So there you go.
Okay, nice.
But I don't know. Who knows? But I wouldn't count Stealth anyway, because for me, Stealth is kind of like a one-hit wonder. It's a launch, it goes up and then it goes down. So to me, but it's still good. But yeah, okay. So additions to the park. So I'd like to see the Pleasure Beach think a bit more about it used to be like I said, it used to be more of an amusement park, which meant that it used to kind of come to life more at night. And it used to be very good in the night. You used to get all the kind of neon lights everywhere. And it used to kind of have this atmosphere. So, a lot of us would say that we'd like to see, Pleasure Beach think about that, how it could come to life more at night. So what could it do I think it could do with bringing some of the rides back to life, putting more lighting on them and things like that, and probably just doing more nighttime riding. So that's something that we'd like to see. With in mind what the Pleasure Beach can do, I think we'd like to probably see Pleasure Beach go for something like probably a ride like King Dakar, for example. And there has been talk in the past. I think it was planned more or less by Jeffrey Thompson. After the big one, they wanted to build something called the bigger one. And the idea of the bigger one was that basically you would get launched out towards the sea, probably go onto like a pier or something like that, go over and top that, and then back into the park. So I think that's something that I'd like to see Pleasure Beach maybe revisit. And I think people would enjoy that. So I mean, because especially considering that even though Icon is technically a multi-launch coaster, the launches aren't, launches like, not really very thrilling launches. So to be able to do something, if they could go for the fastest ride in the UK, going for that kind of title, I think that's something they could do. But we'd like to see them use a bit of the height that they can use as well. So I think if they're going to do anything, go for that height. What can we do that's even bigger than the big one? And I think probably going for something like the bigger one, or you could call it the faster one, if you really wanted to.
Sure. So you kind of knocked out the next section too, which is great. But I'll just give my brief thoughts real quick. What additions does the park need? I think a dark ride. I know you have Valhalla, and that's a water ride, but I think a dark ride, a really standout dark ride that doesn't get you wet, that you can go through, maybe a Sally dark ride, shooter kind of ride in there. I just think that would be really good. Something with a cool building for those hot days. And something that the whole family, like you're saying, we need more family stuff.
When you're talking about Blackpool, so hot days are far and few between.
So then we do the opposite. We put a heater in the building
when it rains. Yeah. I think that's probably another thing actually, because so there used to be a roller coaster called Space Invader, and that was inside. That was near where Nickelodeon Land is now, and there's a pizza restaurant on the bottom floor. But as far as I'm aware, the rest of the space is still empty, apart from where the Nick Streak goes through. So there is potential for a dark ride there. So if they were going to do something, but the thing is, dark rides in the UK, it's not something that parks usually invest in, because it's a tricky one to market, because people in the UK always want, they want the biggest, the fastest, the most thrilling, So trying to advertise a dark ride, they'd have to be very careful about what it is, because I mean the Pleasure Beach does have a number of kind of sort of indoor rides, because you have like, you have the River Case, but you also have the Wallace and Gromit dark ride as well. And I don't know if you guys get Wallace and Gromit over there or not. But that's quite a fun experience. But yeah, I'd agree that probably a dark ride, but if they were going to do it, it needs to be of world-class standard. I think just putting any old, especially with the space that's available, they'd have to put in a major investment. I think it's unlikely because they're having to spend millions of pounds on Valhalla, over the next year. So I think it's unlikely that they're going to do that. But yeah, it would be a really good investment if they could do that.
I think it'd be really cool. As for the next coaster, you're saying something, maybe more in the lines of stealth, something that's taller or faster, something that's bigger than the Pepsi Big one. I'm going to go a little different route. And I don't think that this would be hard to beat the records on, to give to give you guys the tallest and fastest of this version of coaster. But I'm going to go with, if you could find the space, a B&M flying coaster, because you have air, but let's be real, air is not that tall. It's not that fast. It's good, but it's not. You could break those records easily at Blackpool. And imagine flying in and out of all of those coasters and having near misses with other trains from other coasters as they're going by. Oh man, I think it'd be so cool to have a B&M flyer in your park.
Yeah, I think that'd definitely be a good one. I think I think the problem is because Galactica now, it's not got a lot of fans. I think they'd struggle unless it was really, really unique. Maybe we could have. I don't know if these exist or not, but how good would it be if we had a launching flying coaster?
Yeah. I've always said if B&M would build a launched flyer and you launch out and go directly into the pretzel loop, what an amazing start to a coaster. That would be an awesome 1-2 knockout with the launch and then that. Yeah, I just think that'd be so neat.
We'll talk about Superman the ride. That's it, isn't it? That's the dream. Yeah, if they could do something like that, and the problem is because of the space, they'd really struggle with building a lift hill, anywhere at the moment, unless they went out onto the promenade. So maybe a launching flying coaster would, it could be a goer. The only other thing, potentially, if they could somehow find the space around the perimeter of the park, I think probably most people in the UK would say that it'd be brilliant if we could get something like a B&M Giga coaster, so something like Shambhala.
Yeah,
because the thing is, Pleasure Beach can do the height. So to have a ride like Shambhala, which is my number one coaster, by the way, would be absolutely spectacular, and especially with the lap bars. And I mean, those are airtime machines, and that's the thing. Pleasure Beach, it does have rides with ejector airtime. It doesn't really have rides with that kind of floaty airtime. So to have something like a B&M Giga would be amazing. So if they could do something like that, that'd be good. Maybe something like Shambhala would be good. But yeah, I do like the idea of a launch flying coaster as well. That's maybe we might give them a few ideas to do that.
Well, Vekoma is building Fly at Fantasia Land, and that is supposed to be a launched flying coaster. So Blackpool Pleasure Beach, if you're listening, do a flyer and make it weave in and out of all the rides like you're going to have to do. I just think that'd be so cool, especially if you can have it interact with the other trains on the other coasters. Could you imagine coming up into a looping turn like this, and on the other side is the big one flying past you, and you think you're going to collide with the train? And I just think that'd be so cool, and something totally different than what Galactica is. Galactica, part of the reason I think it doesn't have a big fan base is just it doesn't have the height, the speed, and the big elements that these flying coasters, especially a pretzel, you really need pretzel loops and stuff because that's
it was the first one, wasn't it? Was it the first
correct.
one? So for me, I always say this is the problem with Alton Towers is that because they like to go for the world's first and go for something new, the problem is that the B&M will come in and play it safe, won't they? So they'll give them a good deal and say, right, but we're going to have to play it safe because we're not entirely sure how this is going to pan out. They've done all the engineering, but until you actually build the thing, then you actually put real riders on it year in, year out, you don't know what it's going to be. But the next one is always going to be bigger and better. And it's same with Oblivion, because we've ridden Shikra. And it's apart from the drop, which on Oblivion is weirdly more intense than on Shikra, despite Shikra being taller. They have this issue that it's going to be built bigger and better. Whereas Blackpool tend to sort of go out and do their own thing. They might have looked at rides like, Taron, for example, and thought, do you know what? They've used that space there. How can we do that? Similarly. And that's what they've gone and done. But for Blackpool always try, and even though Blackpool they have gone for world's first and things like that in the past, I think they do think a bit more about the ride experience. So what can we do? And also what are we limited to, based on the space we have? Because Alton Towers is on an estate which is something like 1,000 acres. Blackpool Pleasure Beach is on 50 acres. So just by comparison, you've not got a lot to play with. So they have to build unique rides. That's the only way around it.
And to put that in perspective, when you look at a place like Cedar Point, it's on 300 plus acres.
And people say that's small.
That's landlocked. And you haven't seen landlocked people. You haven't seen creativity until you've seen Blackpool Pleasure Beach. So I encourage everyone to get out and watch park tours just so that you can see all the twisted steel and wood that's all around you. It really is a special place.
Yeah, well, we did a vlog in February when we managed to just get there before all the parks closed. So if people have a look at that, we did do a segment when we were on the train. And so if you watch it when we're on the train and you can see us go in between, the big one and all the different coasters, then we go around the hotels and then we'll show you the hotels. And so that just watching that segment will give you an idea of the kind of space that's available and how it's been used.
It's crazy. If for those of us who play Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 or Roller Coaster Tycoon 1, if you have a small park, they call them like tiny parks and micro parks. Think of it like that. Think of it like a micro park or Roller Coaster Tycoon where you just got to stack things on top of each other. Very much the same way there. Yeah. So now that we've talked about the rides and we've talked about what we think could be coming next, let's briefly talk real quick about operations. And this is something that I know nothing of, but how are the park operations at Blackpool Pleasure Beach?
So it depends. It depends what ride it is. So Icon, they have a really, really slick operations on that ride. They generally run I think they've got 3 trains, but they generally run 2 trains because one of the trains has wheels which allows it to operate when it's a bit more windy, and then the other 2 have wheels which allow it to operate under normal conditions. So they'll generally be running 2 trains, and they're really slick with it. They'll normally have one on the brake run and the next one's ready to launch, or they'll have one that's launching while the other one's already in the second segment of the ride. So operations and Icon really, really slick, really smooth. Even though the station is pretty tight, they're very slick. On the big one, again, because of the ride that it is, because it's an older ride, bigger cars, the way that it generally works is a train comes in, people dive in, and it's ready to go, within 60 seconds normally.
Are the crews motivated? Like when you go to Cedar Point here in the States?
Not like there.
They are trying their hardest to get those trains out as fast as they can and keep their capacity going. Is it more laid back at Pleasure Beach?
Yeah, I think it's more laid back than that. But like I said, I think it depends on the ride. So if it's the newer, more high-profile ride, they seem to be very motivated. The thing to remember, I guess, about Pleasure Beach is that because it used to be an amusement park, it used to be, the more riders you could get through an hour meant more money. Whereas now you pay all day. You can still get tickets, but generally you pay all day. So they're not as motivated as they used to be. Jeffrey Thompson used to go around the park, and if the big one went down, he would be kicking off big time about that because he's losing money. To go on the big one at the time would have cost probably £4 or £5, something like that. So to pay £5 and you put in like 800 riders through an hour, you can understand that. But yeah, I'd say in general, I'd say rides like Avalanche, it's much slower operations. The wooden coasters generally, it depends on Nickelodeon Streak. They're normally quite relaxed on there. So yeah, I think it just depends on the ride. But I've noticed on Icon the operations have been really, really slick on there. I think they're just trying to get as many people through as possible. But on the big ones, they seem to be more motivated lately as well. But
so kind of like a Six Flags park.
Yeah,
they're older rides. Kind of, if it's a new attraction, they are get them on there. We got to keep this up and running.
I mean, the thing is, me and my wife generally will go to a park when it's going to be quiet. We have jobs that allow us to, take a couple of days off during the week or something like that. So we'll generally go when it's quiet. So normally they're a lot more relaxed. But however, when we went in February, we had to go on weekends, and for me, they did seem pretty slick. So operations, I think, in the past, people have said that operations could be a lot better at the Pleasure Beach, but to be honest, the way the crowds have been kind of middling in February when it first opened. They probably just did as much as they needed to do. I don't think they needed to be any more slicker. And when you've only got one train on Icon, there's not a lot they can do anyway. Because you're just waiting for the train to come back round. So operations ride, I'd say, not bad. Probably not to the standard of places like Alton Towers, because I think you actually see timers and stuff in the station there, which you don't really see in Pleasure Beach. I haven't noticed any timers in the stations. So I say not bad, but not the most amazing operations that you've ever seen. But also the staff have been really. I think they've been asked to kind of up the game in the last few years in terms of friendliness. Because in the US, what I did notice is, especially at like places like Universal, when rides come in, you get like applauded, don't you? And everyone's saying, "Oh, have a great day," all that kind of stuff. In the UK, it's more like "Get out, see you later, go," kind of stuff. I mean, we're more blunt. We're more blunt in the UK anyway, aren't we? But so they seem to have got a bit more customer focused. So that's been good. So. I'd say not bad, and the staff have been really friendly that I've experienced. I'm impressed. I think they're doing what they need to do, and that's it really. So
good, and so that'll wrap up the operations segment of this, and we'll jump into our next segment here. And so we're gonna wrap up this episode today with just giving our overall thoughts of the park. I'll go first, and then. We'll have Ryan, bring us home here at the end. My overall thoughts of the park is amazing feats of engineering. When I look at the space that they had to work with, how they continually stack stuff on top of each other, and that, to me, also shows their dedication to preserving classic rides as well. They don't want to just tear them down and build something in its plot. It's inevitable someday that that's going to have to happen, but they've said, let's keep them around as long as we can, and let's just go vertical and build around everything. So if you're ever in the UK and you're looking for just a unique experience and you're looking to get on some of the most iconic rides in the UK, I would say definitely head over to Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Ryan, what are your overall thoughts of this park?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, there has been rides that they've had to take out in the past, like the Virginia Reel, but they generally won't take out rides unless they're really at the end of their life. So I'd just say it's a really, really, fun experience. It's a fun family experience. Blackpool as a whole is a really good place to stay. I'd recommend that if you're coming to Blackpool, you wouldn't just come for the day. You'd probably come for the weekend, maybe stay at one of the hotels, because the hotels are really nice at the Pleasure Beach. But yeah, it's a really fun experience. It feels like an old-fashioned amusement park. I mean, it's not a theme park, it's an amusement park. So if you enjoy that kind of fun, family-friendly experience, then there's no better place to go in the UK, I don't think. So overall, I would say definitely probably the most unique place to go, for rides in the UK, and I'd definitely recommend it.
For sure. And so as we're signing off on this episode, I want to thank you, Ryan, for taking the time to talk about these parks, for giving our fans in the U.S., some insider perspectives on a park that I'm sure most of us haven't been to, but we all know about. So thank you for just taking the time. Guys, if you want to know more about parks all over the place, but especially in the UK, make sure to look up Ryan's group, Theme Park Loopy, on Facebook. He's also on Instagram. You can also find him on YouTube right here at this link at Theme Park Loopy. So make sure to go and subscribe and follow him at wherever he's at. Also, this has been Talk Around the Park, our Blackpool Pleasure Beach edition. And remember, guys, always take your thrills to the max, because this is Thrill Maxx.